pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone for being here. We do have a lengthy agenda, so we'll do our best to get through this in a timely manner. Roll call. Myself, Tyler Joyce, present. Gabriel Boyne.
Present.
Colin Tetzlaw.
Present.
Alan Kirshner.
Present.
Heather Schmidt.
Present.
Zoning Administrator Doug Coolman.
Present.
And we've asked Lacey Pletcher to be as our recording secretary. Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Election of officers, I'll have to admit that didn't need to be on there, and I did not, we didn't gather the minutes from the last meeting to only have something before us to approve, so not sure we just take those two off now. That's all right. We have a motion to approve the agenda with correction. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on non-agenda related items. Again, non-agenda related items. If you don't have an agenda, I believe there were some available to you in the back row there. So if there's any non-agenda related items. Paige?
According to Michigan Planning Enabling Act, the Planning Commission is required to hold 4 regular meetings a year. You guys have not been doing that for the last couple of years, and I would like to know if that's going to change. And then you're also required to post minutes on the village website, and that hasn't been done either.
Okay. So, based on what I know about previous meetings, due to there not being a whole lot going on for a lot of years, and up until recently, the village of White Pigeon didn't even have a planning commission. So, once we got that implemented, it was hard to schedule meetings and then try to stick to that schedule, only to find out that the developer comes in a week later, wants to start a project, and we have to go through the motions all over again. So, yeah, I guess I'm not real sure that we haven't had 4. They may not have been on a regular schedule, but there's people sitting in this room, I think, that could attest. They've asked for several planning commission meetings a year for the past couple of years, and we've had them. So, yeah, I don't know.
Will the minutes be posted online?
We will, I guess, I don't control the website, so I guess we can make that request to the council.
Okay.
Is there any other non-agenda related items? Hearing none, we'll move on. Motion to open public hearing for following site plan review regarding parcels related to 691 South Morris Avenue. I'll make that motion. We have a motion by Colin, second by Heather. This time, I guess, turn it over to our zoning administrator for further description.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get into this, we are in public hearing. I will also ask for the record to be indicated that because we do have other council members here, I don't know that we have a quorum, but this meeting was noticed as an incidental meeting of the village council as well. There won't be any business transacted by the village council here this evening, but certainly because of the topics that were being discussed tonight, they're certainly welcome to be here. So just wanted to put that on the record. So you have before you a staff report for a site plan review for 691 South Morris Avenue. Mr. Morris is here with us this evening. And page 2 of your staff report shows the current White Pigeon Village zoning map. This is zoned in an industrial zoning district. He is requesting, it's on page 3 of your staff report, phase 1 is a 42,000 square foot building. And then sometime within, it would be probably later than 12 months, he would like to construct phase 2, which would be a 43,200 square foot building on that same parcel. So far to date, it is a public hearing. It was noticed in the Sturgis Journal, and it was mailed out to all property owners within 300 feet well in advance of the 15-day noticing requirement. As of this date, I only had one request, and that was for a request for a copy of this staff report. It was electronically sent to that requester. And other than that, that's the only comments that I've had either for or against this project. On page 5 of your staff report is a sketch drawing of where the phase 1 and phase 2 proposed projects are. Phase 1 is looking at a $2 million building to be constructed in our village for warehousing. Page 6 of your staff report shows the construction of the building, where there is some small office space, but by far the majority of it is warehouse storage. Page 7 of your staff report is a conceptual drawing of the exterior of the building. And then starting on page 8 of your staff report is the section of the zoning ordinance as it relates to the industrial district, where you can see is a permitted use, an industrial use in manufacturing and storing and warehousing are permitted uses within the industrial district. In review of the proposed project against the rest of the zoning ordinance as it relates to setbacks and other issues, it does meet all the setback requirements, it does meet the height requirements, things of that nature. So in essence, my recommendation to you is that you recommend that this site plan go forward. I do have 2 conditional items that I would like you to consider for this, which one is on page 25 of your staff report. Typically, a zoning permit and a site plan review are good for 12 months. Obviously, phase 1 will be done in 12 months, but phase 2 will not be done in 12 months. I don't see it prudent to make the applicant come back and go through this whole process again when we know phase 2 is coming at us. So my recommendation to the planning commission is that you extend the zoning permit and the site plan review from a 12-month period to a 38-month period. There's also one other condition that I am recommending to you after I talked with Mr. Morris today. There's some questions about how they're gonna do the sewer system because of where it's located in relationship to where the current sewer is. Whether they can connect, whether they're gonna have to do a lift station, whether they're gonna have to do some type of a septic tank with a pump up to it. Those have been unresolved at this point, and so I did talk with Mr. Morris, and he is comfortable with a condition being put on this that they cannot occupy the building until such time that all the water and sewer connections have been properly connected. And he is fine with that. So with that, it would be my recommendation for those 2 items. Other than that, unless you have something additional for me, I think it's a pretty simple request.
For the update, Doug, does any board members have any questions? Thanks, Doug, for the update. Tom, would you like to make any comments or
Not
anything
necessarily.
regarding the project?
Not necessarily, other than the piece of property that I'm developing down there was, you guys pretty much all know what it was. It was the skid recycling place down there, so cleaned it up considerably.
I don't care what it was, I'm excited to see where it's going.
Overall, it's a good thing. This time I'll ask for comments from the public regarding this topic? If there is any.
I just wanna know what it's gonna be used for in the future.
Warehouse.
Okay.
Warehouse, what it was proposed for.
Okay.
Is there any other questions, comments, rather? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. I will make that motion. Motion by Colin, second by Alan, to close the public hearing. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns from the planning commission? I'll make a motion to approve the request with two contingencies that related to, one being the 48-month extension, and second being water and sewer connections. Do we have a second? Second by Heather. Roll call. Do you do that, or do I do that? Colin? Yep. Myself, yes. Heather?
Yes.
Al? Okay. Motion carried.
I will take this to the village council Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Tom. Thank you once again for continuing to choose White Pigeon to do business.
Thank you.
Moving on, motion to open public hearing for the following consideration of rezoning partials on Chicago Road to a commercial and residential mixed-use corridor. Consider rezoning parcels in both the north and south Kalamazoo Street to historical downtown, and text amendments to the following articles. I'll make a motion to go with that.
A second.
Second by Heather, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Doug? Turn this over to you again.
So this is an additional staff report. I give you, what I would first like to concentrate on page 1 of the staff report is the first 4 bullet points, which is as it relates to the rezoning that we're proposing. Again, this was put in the newspaper well in advance of the 15-day noticing requirement because it affected more than 11 parcels. Individual noticing requirements were not required. So again, I only got one contact. That was request for a copy of the staff report, and that was provided. If you go to back towards back a little bit to page 6 of your staff report. Page 6 is indicating what your current zoning map is today. Throughout time, we have had some issues with people selling their property or getting their property refinanced. So if you look at down on South Kalamazoo Street, there's 2 of them that are in yellow with red hash marks. We have one on Chicago Road that is brown with red hash marks. And then we had one up on Dickinson Road, which is not even plotted on this zoning map, that was industrial, that was conditionally rezoned to residential. People are having a tough time with mortgage companies these days. When they go to sell their house, an appraiser calls and they say, what's the zoning? And you tell them that it's a commercial downtown district. And they ask about rebuilding a residential home in that district, which can be problematic. Sometimes mortgages can fail, refinancing can fail. And so it has caused a big issue. We have talked about this for years, but it's seemingly getting worse by the month. We have 2 properties right now that I know are up for sale, that they're having difficulty in obtaining mortgages or whatever because of the zoning classification. What I'm proposing to you is on page 7 of the staff report. So what is in white with the gray hash marks would be a conditional mixed-use corridor. What that basically means is a mixed-use corridor would be allowed to have anything that's currently in the C2 zoning district or a R1 residential zoning district. So those people that have a house that want to sell it, when an appraiser calls and says what it's zoned, we can say it's a mixed use. which R1 is allowed. Additionally, C2 would still be allowed in that district. We are not doing conditional rezones on these for the mere fact that a conditional rezone is a contractual agreement. I think I counted up, there's about 68 parcels that are being affected here. We would have to get a specific contract with each one of those property owners in order to do a conditional rezone. One of the other things that we're doing is we're taking basically one block from each way from the traffic light of Kalamazoo and Chicago Road, and we're redistricting that to a historical downtown district, which will create a new zoning district within your zoning ordinance as well. And then from Murray South, we are converting that from the commercial district back to a residential district, because we had to do two conditional rezones down in that area, and it's all residential housing, so we'll be changing that to R1 residential as well. So with that, starting on page 8 of your staff report is the ordinance that has been prepared by our attorney. There is a lot of information there, but those would be all the amendments that would be required to make such adjustments. It would certainly be my recommendation that it's in the best interest of the village to do this. One of the big questions that always arises is how is that going to affect my taxes? And the answer is it will not. What you're looking at is a zoning map. When your assessor evaluates property, he looks at what you're using it for. So he'll look at what you're using it for. He figures out in his tax code what its best use is. I can pretty much guarantee you right now, if you looked at any of the green district now and picked out a house out of that property and looked up their property classification, the assessor's gonna have it as 401 residential, even though it's in a commercial district. So there's a zoning code and there's a tax code, two different things, and your zoning code does not affect the taxes. So I just want to make that clear on that issue. But other than that, I think that's, again, we've talked about it for years. We've heard that a downtown development authority wanted to start up, wanted to be able to ascertain grants for, historical buildings and things like that. This would be the first step to assisting for the development of a downtown authority. Other than that, from that section, I think that's pretty much all I have. Unless you have some questions from me. If there's no questions, we can move on to the bullet point then if you want.
Yeah.
So the final bullet point on your staff report is text amendments as it relates to commercial marijuana. So the following: marijuana growers, marijuana retailers, micro businesses, secure transporters, safety compliance facilities, marijuana event organizers, temporary marijuana events, designed consumption establishments, and excess marijuana growers license. You have an appointed committee in the village who has gone through and reviewed this. I did provide to you a copy of their recommendations to go to the village council. Police-powered ordinance. A police-powered ordinance is reviewed by the village council and really doesn't have any preview under the planning commission authority. That ordinance starts on page 24 of your staff report. I give it to you only for the fact that it helps you understand with that police-powered ordinance why you're amending the zoning ordinance, which is under your preview. So the amendment to the zoning ordinance is starting on page 20 of your staff report. So the committee is recommending to the village council that number one, the only interest in the village is for retailers, and that the village would allow 2 retail facilities in the DCLI district, which is basically from Chicago Road to the river, from the railroad tracks to 131, and also in the mixed-use corridor. I did give you 2 maps. Part of the committee's recommendation, which is pretty much state law, you do have the authority to reduce it, but it is in law in the code. The one map I gave you is the radius of 1,000 feet from the public school property, K through 12. As you can see, when you do that 1,000-foot radius from both our school properties, it pretty much eliminates the entire east side of the village from being a marijuana retailer. The other map that I gave you, the committee elected to not allow a retail business within 500 feet of a church. So I've indicated that there's 4 churches on this map, and those yellow lines around those green properties are a 500-foot radius. So those areas would not be allowed to have retailers in it either. The ordinance also, by the committee's recommendation, is that it cannot be within 100 feet of a residence. And that's measured from building to building, not property line to property line. So this amendment to your zoning ordinance would basically allow a retail marijuana facility in either your GCLI district or your mixed-use corridor district. If you recommend to move forward with this, again, these are amendments to your ordinance. Under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, they're required to go to the County Planning Commission. The County Planning Commission gets 30 days to review this and respond if they so desire, and then we would bring it back to the Village Council for final approval. The night that I bring the recommendation back from you and the County Planning Commission would be the same evening that I would intend on presenting the police power ordinance so they could both be approved on the same evening. It does not make sense to approve one before the other because it can be problematic. The police powered ordinance could be, I guess, adopted Wednesday night, but it's going to go into effect before the zoning districts that are allowed in, so I still couldn't proceed. So they need to be adopted in tandem. So if they go into effect at the same time, then we can move forward from there. This would, in your situation, this would also be a special land use permit. So it would come before the planning commission for review as well. Difference between a permitted use and a special land use, for the most part in the village, is going to be taking up an occupied building that's already here. So if it's a permitted use, it would merely be a change of use that would be authorized out of my office. If you do a special exception land use, it would come before the planning commission and the village council. And at that point, there is, as long as it's reasonable, there are allowed to be specific conditions or restrictions put on it. But I think your ordinance, your police powered ordinance, pretty much covers the do's and don'ts, the cans and the cannots when it comes to that part of it. So I don't know what those restrictions would be, but it is possible. So unless you have some questions for me, I think I've covered that for you as well.
Covered that time in there. For sake of the public hearing portion, are there any comments at this time from the public regarding any of the topics that Doug just recently covered?
Okay, so I have the report. I'm the one that asked for it. I don't know if you want to look at it. Page 4, it says the non-conforming means the property owner may maintain what they have and cannot enlarge or expand it. If it goes away, it cannot be rebuilt. So anybody within the historic district, if their house burns down, they can't rebuild it?
No. So right now, in the commercial district, that would be yes.
Okay, so that's just for the commercial? That's not for the historic?
We're planning on making a home that's already in the historic district allowed.
Okay. And then on page 20, it says the facility may not located within 500 feet of established church within the village of White Pigeon. So let's say a dispensary goes out on 131 across from that church. You're basically saying you don't care about that church because it's not within village limits?
Botwell Township is adopting the similar ordinance. They are not putting any restriction in from the church. So that church is located in Montville Township, and Montville doesn't care that a church, dispensary is gonna be next to that church. I don't think it's the village's responsibility to add an additional sanction that the township in which the church is located in doesn't carry.
Okay, and then on page 30, that says, it established an annual non-refundable adult use establishment fee, the amount of $5,000 for each licensed marijuana establishment. What is that $5,000 going to go for? What is it going to?
I don't have a clue. That's nothing regarding zoning, that's all, the state law permits, in fact, the maximum fee.
So
What they use it for, I don't know, and it's not under my authority.
So who would I ask that question to?
Village council.
Village council?
It's an application fee.
I know, but what is the application fee, like, where is that once they apply, does that $5,000 just go to the county? Does it go to the state? Does it go to the
No, it stays
village?
here.
White Pigeon's
Like,
here.
okay, so would it go into like the general fund? Or what would it go into is my question.
I don't know what the village wants to do, are they gonna allocate it to a specific fund? I
But
don't
probably
know.
just reimburse the new expenses that this is making, administrative fees for doing applications and a whole new learning curve with the state and the committees meeting. Like,
Okay.
it's just reimbursing our expenses, basically.
Where would you like to see it go, Paige?
To the water project. So that way it lessens the blow on the citizens.
If I had anything to do with that, it wouldn't, a dime of it wouldn't go to that, but appreciate your concerns. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns from the public? Yeah.
Go ahead. The proposed historic downtown district, the reason for that is to get money after we tore down the second oldest building in the state of Michigan. Now, this is something that maybe should have been done a while ago then, instead of egos getting in ways.
Are you making a comment or a question?
Well, that was sort of a comment and a question.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand the question.
Well, the question is, what are we trying to restore? We tore down everything that was basically old in this town.
I guess we're trying to preserve what's left, right?
May not be much left, but there is
Yeah.
some older buildings left, and it's never too late to start.
So I'm saying we should have maybe thought ahead of ourselves,
We did.
instead of letting our egos get in ways.
We've been trying to do this historic district for many years, and nobody had the interest to do it. And I don't know what even there was, that building, that's water under the dam at this point.
Any other questions regarding either zoning or the marijuana proposals? Going once? Going twice? Motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Heather, second by Al. Review and discussion, rezoning by this board. Is there any further questions, comments, concerns? Should we go one for one here?
I would do each one of them separate, but yes, and again, all this stuff has been reviewed by the legal counsel, so.
Does everybody understand? We'll go ahead and call for a roll call regarding each one individually, just in case there's any reason someone would want to vote against. I'll go ahead and start the motion off for item number 1, regarding rezoning partials along US 12 to a mixed use. Is there a second? Okay. First by myself, second by Kay. Got that, Lacey?
Yeah.
Roll call. Kay? Myself, yes.
Yes.
Colin? Yes. Motion carried. Item number 2, consider rezoning parcels for both the north and south Kalamazoo Street for, be considered a historical downtown and single-family residential as indicated on the map. I'll entertain a motion.
Yes.
Heather and Kay. Go with another roll call. Al?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. All in favor? Work for it, so that motion carried there. Item number 3, regarding the marijuana, zoning proposal.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Al. Second by Heather. Roll call. Colin? Jay?
Here.
Al?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Myself, no. Motion carried. Any other business come before the planning commission? From the planning commission members? Nothing? Doug?
I have nothing else to provide for you.
Lacey, are you content?
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, I'll make a motion, I guess, then Al second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.